Well, it's been a fascinating year for Exeter Resource Corporation. In March, they spun off their Argentinian assets to a company called Exeter Gold Mines, but they held on to their Chilean assets, and those include the giant gold-copper Caspiche project. Let's get some details with Yale Simpson, Executive Chairman of Exeter Resource Corporation. Yale, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Let's start with Chile. How do you come up with a project in Caspiche? And you've got some pretty important neighbours as well.
Luck and timing. We formed this company in 2003, and the gold price was terrible, right? It was less than $300 an ounce. And then and at that time we went to the big companies like Anglo American, Anglo Gold, and said, do you have properties that are non-core assets? And in doing it in Chile, they had a property called Caspiche that had some holes in it with some gold, but not showing a lot of promise. We took it up under a deal with them where they get a royalty now, and drill hole number 13 was the discovery, and it went through great thickness of mineralization.
Okay, and in September you've announced an upgrade to those resources, 21.3 million ounces of gold,
right.
5.3 billion pounds of copper and 48 million ounces of silver.
Yeah, well,
that's quite big.
It's huge by industry standards, and I can paint the perspective, but the second part of that question you'd asked me, you said, well, who are your neighbors? Our neighbors on one side is Barrick Gold, and on the other side is Kinross Gold, and if you go down the street further, if you like, you have Gold Corp. So you have some of the biggest companies in our space there, and it surprised us that this project got as big as it has. It ranks in size as the biggest discovery made by the mining industry in a few years, because the 26 million ounces of gold, when you add all the categories together, is very, very large.
Clearly you think there's potential for further upgrades as well.
Yeah,
when is the next set of drilling results?
We're drilling it again now. It's not going to get a whole lot bigger. It is big. A lot of what we're doing now, and 80% of that resource, as we call it in Canada, is measured and indicated. So it's in the higher level of confidence. We're trying to define from an engineering point of view the details of the geometry to fit into our mining models, more than trying to make this 50% bigger again. I think we're about there in terms of size.
But you describe yourself also as a mine development company. Do you not see yourselves as a producer at any stage?
At any stage, that's a longer question, but for this particular project, we spun out Exeter to focus the company on this one project. It is so big. It's at an elevation of 4,200 meters, so over 14,000 feet. The capital costs are very large to develop these, and it takes a very high-end engineering team to do it. We're good at exploration and this development. We will go into a transaction at a point in time, and we're looking at, say, a year out from now, where we can say to any of the major companies, we would like to do a transaction, either on the property or on the company itself.
Okay, well, you've just raised 50 million Canadian dollars. How far does that get you on that train?
Well, with the money that we already had, which brings us up to 85 million, that'll go through these pre-feasibility studies, this additional drilling. You know, by that time we'll have about 140 million invested in the property, and all it is drill holes, assays, core, and engineering. That's how big it is. People will build a mine for 140 million. But this is basically the engineering that you need to define to enter into transaction mode on Exeter.
So this is the strategy, which effectively is an exit strategy.
Yes.
Is that it?
And we're being helped a great deal by the gold price. It's a gold copper porphyry, as we call it. They're low grade. They're the sorts of projects that'll produce 750,000 ounces of gold a year for 20 years. They're the sorts of projects that sustain the major companies in our business, and they're the rarest. So we will go into that transaction mode on the company in about a year.
I was going to say, does it give you a problem at the moment? I mean, back in, February, there was a rumour of a bid or a takeover or whatever. It's going to continue, isn't it?
Every time the gold price spikes up, the rumours will come out saying, that's why. I might say a lot of our core shareholders are specialist gold funds who go long on the space. They have a view that the gold price is going higher, and they see the leverage to gold that you have with this junior. Our market capitalization is, say, 500 million, and if you add up the total amount of metal, it's over 40 billion. So gold price goes up higher, it increases the likelihood, theoretically, of there being a transaction on the company. And the media picks up on that all the time.
Okay, so what is the general message, not necessarily for the specialists, but the general message to investors?
The general message is, let us de-risk the project, show the value of the project, so we can put in place a competitive environment with the majors to do a transaction with a company. That will add a lot of value as we go through that process.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Yale Simpson, thanks so very
Thank
much
you.
indeed for joining us today.
Okay.
This film is for educational and leisure purposes only. Proactive Investors does not provide investment advice. The company is a publisher and is not registered with or authorized by the Financial Services Authority. Please refer to the full terms and conditions on the Proactive Investors website.